Hi everyone, it's Crafty Tina's. Today's video, we're going to make a simple soft cover notebook using the universal cinch. Now you will be able to make the same thing using any of the cinch machines. You will just have to modify what you're using and the adjustments themselves. Now, in a prior video, I show you how to use the original cinch and use 4:1 spiral binding. I will put that link in the description. If you are using a regular cinch, you will need to know the measurements and how to punch the holes in order to use this 4:1 pitch spiral. The 4:1 pitch spiral does work in the universal cinch. I do recommend that you use 16 millimeter or above, because I've noticed that the smaller spirals do not work, because when you open the book, the pages overlap inside the spiral and they don't flip easy. So make sure you stay 16 millimeter or larger when you're using the universal cinch and the 4:1 pitch spiral. Now for this notebook, it is a personal notebook for a friend. She needs a log for work, so I have printed out these specific pages. This is not on my Facebook page because this would not make sense to anyone else. However, on my Facebook page, you can print out the half sheet. I think this is called the checklist. Half sheet, meaning that it is exactly 5.5 by 8.5. It is half of an 11 by 8.5 piece of standard printer paper, copier paper, whatever you want to call it. It's just the cheap white paper that you usually get any office supply, Walmart, Target, or Amazon. It is, I believe, 20 pound. So let's make a notebook that is soft bound. And what I mean by soft bound is we are not going to put chipboard, which is this thick cardboard like. We normally cover this in paper or cardstock, and then we use this as our covers. But that makes a hardback book. We're going to make a softback book. But one thing we are going to add that I haven't done in other videos is we're going to add the plastic clear. And I know you guys can't see this because it's clear. I'll get some little glare going on it. We're going to add this clear report cover sheet to the front and back to protect the soft bound book. Now this will not make it a hardback book. It's still going to be soft, but it is going to protect it when you're laying it on a surface in case the surface is damp, or if you're like me and you eat at your desk because you know you got to have your snacks. It is protected front and back. I'm also going to show you how to take a piece of kind of unstandard paper. Like this is a 12 by 12, but what makes it different is this print is not all over the page, it's only on one side. There are multiple ways we can make our notebook very pretty based on how we cut this piece of paper. So that's why this one's not cut to size yet, because there are a variety of ways we can cut it, and I want to show you what those ways are and how we think they will look based on the size notebook we're doing. So let's get started. Another thing we are going to do is we are going to add pockets. I made pockets in one of my prior videos this week. I absolutely am obsessed with these little guys. We made these using the pocket punch board. These are the 2 2.25 size. They were perfect. We used them on greeting cards. I had some left. I've been using them like crazy. I went ahead and made cards with them. But I want to show you how we're going to add these pockets to this notebook. We're also going to add photo corners or decorative corners. This is a die set again. Anytime I tell you guys to buy something, I am going to show you multiple ways of using it so you get your money's worth. This is a die set. There's 18 different dies in here. They're not duplicated at all. I'm going to show you again how to use some corners on our notebooks. And then I'm going to show you how to make paper clip flower bookmarks. We're going to add these in one of the pockets to the inside of this journal so that you can have paper clip bookmarks to gift with your journals. Again, I told you this was for a friend. This is a specific notebook for her needs. If you have someone who works in an office, you may want to ask them, hey, if you could have any kind of notebook, what kind of notebook would you need? And it would make a great gift. I know she watches my videos, so she's going to be able to watch her notebook being made. Let's start with how we're going to make our cover. This is a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. Now they make it like this so you can use this as a scrapbook page. I'm sure the 12 by 12 pages came out because of scrapbooking. When I got into paper crafts, scrapbooking was a huge thing. I wanted to scrapbook my wedding album, and that is putting a bunch of pictures inside a book. Most of the time, the book was 12 by 12, and you would decorate the page with all your pictures and add all kinds of embellishments and just fancy it up, slip it in a clear sleeve, and you made a book like that. And I started buying the supplies to make my wedding album into a scrapbook. I've been married a very long time, and I still do not have a wedding scrapbook. Once I started buying paper supplies, I realized that I absolutely love card making. So card making is where I ended up. Never got that scrapbook made, actually never ever made a scrapbook. Personal preference. I just decided I really love making cards. Because this is a one directional and only part of it is printed, you may look at this and think it's not a good fit for a cover. But let's think different and outside the box. What if we cut this corner off right here? Then we are left with a really pretty front with a bottom border of flowers. This is really cute for a notebook. So don't look at a piece of 12 by 12 and think, well, that's not going to work. I'll be cutting off some flowers. Sometimes that is a good thing. You would have this whole little set across the bottom of your notebook. But what if we turned that to where these flowers were on one side and then we cut our piece? Then we're going to be left with a notebook that has a whole side of flowers and a solid side. Even though the flowers are meant to grow up, there's nothing saying these flowers can't be coming out of the spine itself. Had I had green in this size, absolutely, that would have looked wonderful. The yellow, it's okay. For this video, I am going to cut it so that my flowers are along the bottom. I'm doing that so that I can have a green corner, if I choose, in the upper right-hand side. But we may put these corners on the inside. As you notice, I did not show you a finished book. We're going to do this book together, and I wanted you to see how I try to logic how to match up prints and get my whole thing coming together. Sometimes it works exactly like I want, and sometimes in the middle of it, I go in a different direction. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut my cover piece. And again, we're not wrapping anything around chipboard, so the cover piece is going to be the size of my notebook. And that is 5.5 by 8.5. So we're going to get the works board and we're going to cut that. And I do not see my works board. Always keep your, oh, it's right where it's supposed to be. Always keep your supplies handy. Keep used items that you use a lot in view. Once you put these things away, you won't bring them back out. So because I want, and this was on the scoring, so we're going to flip it around. This is the We Are Memory Keepers works board. We're going to cut this at 5.5 because I want to have 5.5 so that I can have these flowers at the bottom. And because we're cutting it this way, we are going to be able to use one sheet of paper for the front and the back. So I'm simply going to line it up to the 5.5 and cut. I'm going to take the other side and I'm going to decide which side I want to cut some off because I only need 5.5 right here. So I'm going to be cutting off this much. Do I want to cut off these flowers or do I want to cut off these flowers? I'm a big fan of purple and pinks and all of that. I'm going to cut off this side, but you have a choice. You could cut off this side so that most of your flowers are full. If you like the look of cut flowers, you could cut off this side. Again, another choice that you can make. Crafting is all about having fun. It's not being about right or wrong, it's about having fun. So now I've cut off the red flower, but I have more of the purples left, and that's what I like. So that's what I went with. This is a strip that you absolutely should save. This is a great strip to add to a greeting card, so don't throw this away. Now I have them both cut at 5 inches wide. One's going to be the cover and one front cover, and one's going to be the back. Now I need to cut them at 8.5. With the Works board, it opens up to 14 inches. If you don't open it up, it only goes to 6.25. I want to cut these at 8.5. So I'm going to put them on 8.5. Going to double check, make sure everything's where I want it, and cut. Now save these because they're the pretty little sky blue. I know you can't really see that in the lighting. They match the strip. So these will go toward a card making adventure. I have a whole basket full of scraps and I love to just dig through and make a card out of the scraps. So now I have 5.5 by 8.5 front and back covers. I'm going to close up the Works board. We're going to put it back where it belongs so I can find it next time. That's the trick. Now let's talk about how we're going to assemble this book. Because we have two pretty prints, front and back, we need to pick what's the front and pick which is the back. I like this look. I like all these little sprig things standing up. So this is going to be my front, and this is now going to be my back. We have the front. We need to put a clear protected cover on the front, and this starts our notebook stack. The next thing I want is I want a piece of solid cardstock because that's where I'm going to put the pockets on the inside. So this is my next page. Then I want to add all the little spreadsheets that I printed. There's 20 sheets of 20-pound here. I'm going to add a solid piece of cardstock as a divider between the two different pages. And then I'm going to add 20 sheets of 20-pound paper of my checklist. And then for the back, it is going to be the back cover and then the other piece of protective plastic. And this is the notebook that I wish to bind. You want to make sure that this is going to be fine in your spiral binding. Make sure that there's plenty of room. This is probably about half of the height. You want to have enough room so when you fold it, there's plenty of freedom to move back and forth. You don't want a notebook that's very hard to open and close. I don't have a guide made for that yet. I do have one for the wire, the double loop wire. I actually have a YouTube video showing you how to make a guide for that. I don't have a guide for this one yet. I am working on it. I haven't had my universal cinch very long because it hasn't been available in the US as long. So let's bind this notebook, and then we're going to add all kinds of accessories, and then we're going to make some paperclip bookmarks and add them to the pocket on the inside. This machine, I've had doubts. It's growing on me. I'm learning to like it a little bit more and more. For the spiral binding, we don't need the back side. We only need to punch our holes and then manually add the spiral binding. So we're going to punch the holes using their little measurements right here. There's so few. They tried to make it easy for us. So let's go ahead and use them. This only cares about the side that you are going to put your spiral in. It does not care how big your book is, and it doesn't care how long your book is. Well, it does. It only cares about how long your book is. It basically needs to be able to tell you where to start punching the holes. This is 8.5, so 8.5. So we are going to line up our pages to the 0.5, the half mark, because this is 8.5. If you follow that train of thought, your punches will line up properly. I do have on my Facebook page, there is a universal log sheet that shows you some measurements. Sometimes you can move the slider out and get different results, and that is what I have on my Facebook page. I also have this for the cinch and the mini cinch to give you some additional information on how to calculate the measurements. I am adding to this, and I'll try to get that added this week. I'm adding how to get this spiral 4-to-1 pitch used in the original cinch and not just in the universal cinch. So let's get started punching. This is like a little slinky, it just doesn't want to stay. I do notice that because of the shape of these punches, with this machine, more is less. You will have less problems using less sheets. So the more you use, the more trouble you're going to have. The less you use, the less trouble you're going to have. So let's take a small amount. We're going to make sure it's nice and straight. We're going to line it up to the 0.5. We're going to push in all 6 pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all need to punch. We've lined it up to the 5, and now we're going to punch. And we're going to put this face down, just like we punched it, off to the side, and continue doing that for the whole stack. And then we're going to do the next round. So it's face down, so that I make sure I punch the holes on all the sides properly. We're going to put it to the 0.5. We're going to punch. And face down, off to the side. I staggered it so I would know how much I punched at a time. We're going to do the same thing again. Face down to the 0.5 and punch. We're going to do this 2 more times just because I don't want to overwhelm it. And I know it's because of the shape of the punch, not the quality. We're going to put it back in to the 0.5. Make sure you are pushing it all the way in. We want those punches to have the exact same amount of space behind them. And then our last one, face down, 0.5, all pushed in and all the way to the back. And now we have all our little stacks over here. We are ready to do the second punch. So I'm going to move it over. There is a little tab right here. It has a peg, and that peg is going to lock down and hold one of our holes. And I wanted to show you so that with the machine sideways, so you know what I was talking about when I say put the peg down or put the peg up. This is basically holding it in place so we can punch the next round of holes. Keeping it face down, I'm just taking them right back. You are not going to use the markings. You're going to go to the last hole that we punched. You're going to go to the last hole that we punched, and you're going to put that last hole in the peg and press it down. Now you can see, because it is a slot hole, you can move this back and forth. Before you punch, you're going to push it all the way into the machine this way. You're going to make sure it's all the way to the back this way. And then you're going to pull out anything that looks like it is going to punch half a hole. So we are pulling out number 3. You're only going to punch 1 and 2 all the way flush to the back, and your pages all the way into the machine, and punch. Open up your peg, and now I have all of my punches. I'm going to flip this now face up, so as I punch, I can add it to the stack. Remember, I put these over here exactly the way I punched them, so I'm simply going to put the peg in the last hole, push it all the way into the machine and all the way back, making sure that only 1 and 2 are pushed in and 3 is not pushed in. Open my peg and face up. This is going to keep them all in the order for us and keep us all straight. We're going to put the peg in the last hole again. We're going to push it in the machine and all the way toward the machine. Peg up, face up. Take the next stack, put the peg in the last hole, push it all the way into the machine and all the way to the back, and punch. Put the peg up, face up, and now for the last stack. We're putting the peg in the last hole, we're pushing it in, and punch. Peg up. And now we have, very quickly, you saw how easy and quick that was, even with me sitting here explaining, we now have our notebook with all of the holes punched. How cool. They're all consistent. I don't think you're going to get any straighter than that. This little plastic slides around a little bit, but you're not going to really get it any better than that. One of the things that was one of my biggest concerns, and everybody else's too, was there's no page stopper over here. So you have no way of pushing the paper up against it to make sure your punches are consistent. However, I have been making multiple notebooks and I have not had a problem not having the page stopper. This one doesn't punch as thick of a stack, so it is very easy to line it up on that 0.5 line. So far, so good. I'll let you guys know if I start having any issues. Let's add our spiral binding to our notebook. Now, again, I am using a 16 millimeter 4:1 pitch. I got a variety pack just so I could see what sizes I could use. This is the smallest size I will recommend, no matter how small your notebook is. It's not about the thickness. The reason I don't want you to go any lower, it is about the distance of actual cardstock and paper you have right here. This book has to open and not overlap. There has to be a gap in there. If you had it any smaller, these pages are going to overlap and you're not going to be able to flip the pages as well. So for me, 16 millimeter is going to be my recommendation for now. I do have a hack coming up on that. I'm just working on it. I want to be able to go smaller because I want to make small coloring books. That was my whole goal. So I am working on a solution and I almost have it figured out. I don't want to share it with you guys until I have it perfected and I make sure that it works. You guys know I can't just open up a new crafting toy and not expect me to do something different with it because I'm just that way. I like being creative and I love getting my money's worth with these machines. So now you're going to take your notebook and you're going to take your spiral with the little end up here. You're going to put that end in the very bottom hole. I recommend grabbing some binder clips and holding these pages, especially if you have this clear cover over it. And the only reason I don't have any is because I've moved them somewhere and I don't know where I put my little cup. But if you put a binder clip on the top and the bottom, it's easier to get them started because they're not sliding all over the place. You're going to put it in the first hole and you're going to turn it so that it goes in that first hole 4 times. I want 4 loops in the first hole. Okay? Once you start it, it will stay down here better. Even though it's a little stretched here, it's okay. You're simply going to turn it so that you can get 4 loops in the next hole. I'm just basically turning it just around and around. There's no effort, there's no excessive strength or anything needed for this. It is very simple. It actually takes a smaller amount of effort than it does to even press this machine. So if you're worried about your hands not cooperating or not having enough strength, it requires no strength. You're just simply turning the spiral and look at it go. Sometimes you have to help it go into the next one, and that's because it is very bouncy and springy, so you want to make sure you get it in that next hole before you keep turning. So you may have to help it a little here and there, but for the 4 loops, you don't have to look, they go in there right away. And you just keep turning, turning, and turning. And once I have my 4 in there and I can see it, that means you can stop. So now let's talk about cutting this. You're going to flip it over to the back. I am using actual plastic cutters. This is actually little cutters that cut filament on 3D printers. It does wonderful. I'm sure scissors will work, but if you do use scissors, make sure you're not using your good scissors. And I'm going to just clip. So now looking at my book, here is the end and here is the end. Now I want to show you how I close those ends up and up close, because I did have someone ask me. Let me grab my needle nose pliers. We're going to come to this one. We are simply going to take the end of that plastic and we are going to bend it into an L shape. And by bending it, it is never going to come out now unless I bent it back. So you guys can see that? I just simply bent the end. Let's do the other one. As you can see, the end of the plastic is straight across from the notebook. If you have that end come all the way here, even bending it, it's too much. So now we're just going to bend that until it's facing the notebook. And now when it gets turned, it won't go anywhere. And that is how you close these plastic bindings. These are spiral bindings. Now you have this piece left, and as you know, we save our scraps because we make little notebooks. So you're going to hang on to this, not play with it too much, you know, because it is fun. You're going to hang on to these because we are going to make some small notebooks coming up. We're going to make some little Christmas coloring books and stuff like that. So make sure you hang on to all of your scraps. This is a no waste craft. You're going to hang on to everything. You're going to hang on to your pieces of extra paper, and you're going to hang on to all your little scrap wires. So now I have my notebook. I have a clear cover, but you guys, the static electricity holds that clear cover to my cardstock. So I don't have to worry. It looked like it wasn't closing. I don't have to worry about it not being attached because it does cling. It clings to that cardstock. So that's a great thing. But now it's a little splash proof and it's shiny. So now we have our cover. We have our inside piece of cardstock that we're going to decorate and put some bookmarks on. We have our 20 pages, our little worksheet. Then we have another cover so we could add anything we want. We could doodle, we could draw, we could put a personal message, we could put anything we want here. We could even add a larger pocket to put little notes or something inside. And then we have our back section, which is just a checklist notebook. And remember, this page is available for free on my Facebook page. And then we have our back cover, which is white. It's plain. It's not a problem. We can even decorate that if we wish. And this back piece of plastic, again, the static electricity. I don't know if you can hear it. It actually sticks it to the paper without you doing anything. These are called clear report covers. You can get them on Amazon. They no longer carry the ones that I have because I bought a pack of 100 years ago and the seller no longer sells them, but there are multiple sellers out there. I will find you one that's like mine and put that link in the description as well in case you're looking for them. This is the first notebook I've made with the clear cover, and I have to admit, I kind of like it. I like it better than laminating because once you laminate, you still have to go back and cut unless you laminate first and then you have to cut. This one is flexible, so it keeps our soft cover book flexible. Some laminating because of the heat and it makes it really thick. It is not a soft cover, so you can choose either way. You could have laminated this or use the report cover. So now let's go on the inside and let's decorate and add some fun things to this page. I have 2 little pockets here. They're both 2 1/4, and I'm going to add them to this plain page. And the reason I want to add them is because I want to put some greenery in this one. And I want to put the little flower bookmarks like this. I'm going to show you how to make them into the other one so that they can use them to mark their place in their notebook. So you're going to have a notebook with little flowers sticking out. It's so cute. Now, before we do this, let's do our corners. You have to decide where you want your corners, and I want to show you all the possibilities. The first one is to put your corner on the cover, and you just simply wrap it around like a corner is supposed to be. This die cuts with little perforated, little indented lines on each side. So the corner is going to wrap around behind it, and this clear is going to go on top, and that would keep it from being trampled or moved. And see how cute that ends up being. If you don't want it distracted off your cover, perhaps you would like to put the person's name on there. You could also add this to your inside dividers. This would allow a really good way of finding your dividers, especially if you were doing one on this center page, because by putting it here, you're going to be able to see the green edge, and it would make a very good divider hint because we're not using tabs to find our dividers. So let's put one on each page. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to put this little guy, and I want to put him this way. Make sure you're putting him on the correct side. So I need to put my adhesive on this back side. You can use double-sided tape, score tape, you can use glue of your choice. I have been using a pen hot glue gun, and it has worked really well for me. It uses very little glue because you don't need much at all. And because it's instant, I don't feel like I'm spending a lot of time holding something down. And that is it. The only downfall are the strings, and I've learned that if you just go in a little circle, you can get rid of those strings. So now I have a corner for my inside divider. Now, when this book is closed, it is very obvious where that divider page is, and it makes it a little easier to find. If you would like, you can add a little bit of glue to the edges that stick up. I wouldn't recommend the hot glue for that. You're going to need something a little smaller, maybe some precision glue, craft glue, that kind of stuff. We're going to put a little bit of this. I want to make sure it's coming out. It is. We're going to put a little bit underneath these two little flappy things here because I feel like they need to be secured so nothing gets caught on them. And once I put them down, then these right here fell down too, so I'm really happy with that. I'll get rid of that without making too big of a mess. And now I have a pretty little corner inside of my inside divider. So now let's go back to the front page. You do want to make sure your glue is not coming out, not oozing, and it's not sticky because you don't want it to glue to your page. Let's go back to this page. Let's now put our pockets on this one. Actually, let's put our corner on this page. Because I'm going to have greenery to kind of tie into my cute little flower bookmarks that we're going to put in this pocket, we're going to put this little green guy right here. And it's going to kind of tie into the actual page. When I make cards, I like to put 3 elements on the card. I like the staggered look of having 3 instead of having 4 and them being lined up. So let's put the little corner on, and then we'll put our pockets on. Again, we're going to make sure we put him on the correct side. So we need to glue from the back. We're going to tuck that into the corner. I'm going to grab, I don't keep this in view because for some reason, I think it's the fluorescent green of this. My camera keeps trying to zoom in to this glue gun. So maybe it's the heat, maybe it's the glue, the green. I don't know, but when I don't have this in camera view, I will show you what it looks like. comes with a stand and a little hot glue drippy thing, which is silicone and no glue sticks to it, which is great. And again, I got that from Amazon, but I think someone commented that even Walmart has that hot glue pen. Make sure it is a pen and not just a hot glue gun. And the reason for that is you need it to have a fine tip so that the glue comes out in a small stream. You don't want a big glob of glue because then you're going to feel it through your book. You're going to feel it through your pockets, because we are actually going to use it to put our pockets on as well. Now, when I made my cards, I only hot glued here. I didn't go edge to edge because I wanted my pocket to look like it was more 3D-ish. For this, it's inside the notebook. So I actually want this to be flat. So I am going to go closer to the edge. Now I glued these pockets together with hot glue, I believe. I think I did them with hot glue. Yes, I did. I didn't go to the edge though, so let me fix that. If you glue your little pockets together with hot glue, they go together super fast. So now I'm going to glue just around the outsides. And we're going to put this little pocket down here in the corner. I just basically used kind of the same amount of space. Not worrying about getting it perfect, not worrying about getting it centered, not worrying about getting it exact. Crafting is fun and should never be something that has to be exact. Now we're going to add this cute little pink pocket, and I want to bring it down enough so when I put my greenery in, my greenery does not stick out of my notebook. So I'm going to put it about right here. So I'm going to put this tool here just to remind me how far down I want it to go. I'm going to grab my hot glue gun again, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just simply going to add some hot glue and place it down here. I also didn't want to go too close to my spiral binding. So now I have cute little pockets, and you can use these for anything. I was actually going to make a paper bookmark, but I decided to make some pretty flower bookmarks instead. Now I want to stick some greenery into my pocket. Again, I'm going to use the glue gun because it just goes so much faster because it dries so quickly. And that's why you do have to know where you're going to put it right away, because it is going to dry quick. I don't want to press down my pocket. I don't want my pocket to be glued shut because I have more to do. So we're going to add the next one. These are die cuts. They're super cute. I also used them in a prior video because I have to help you guys get your money's worth. If I'm going to tell you to buy all these pretty things, I got to help you use them. And now we're going to add this little guy. Kind of get in there, get in the pocket. We're going to add him to front and kind of make him look like he's sticking out a little. Now, I don't want this to be overly loose because this is not a greeting card. This is a notebook that's going to be used on a regular basis. So I am going to put just a little bit of glue on the tops of these two long ones. This one's fine. It's small enough. It's not going to matter. But I don't want them to get caught and mess up. So now we have a pocket with some cute little greenery in it. Now let's talk about making our bookmarks. These bookmarks are made with cutout paper flowers, just a variety of little paper flowers. Instead of a rhinestone for the center, I did cut out, and I used the We Are Memory Keepers punch. This is the one that is a set. This is the hinge set for your envelope punch board. I'm using the largest circle. And I'm also using a 3/4 inch circle. This is just a Fisker plain little punch guy. He's really, really old. I used these two circles. This one is for the front. My glue strands are attached to everything. These are for the flower fronts. Instead of using a gemstone, you could, but I didn't want to close the book and have you feel those gemstones be too thick sitting in there. I mean, you already had this little pocket, which is a little thick, but he was too cute. I had to add him. So you're still going to feel the actual paper clip. I didn't want you to actually feel a jewel as well. So what I did was I took a few different flowers. You want 2 different sizes just so that they can look layered. If they are close to the same size, make sure they're 2 different types of flowers. Like these have bigger petals than this one. Any kind of layered flowers will work. I chose to only do 2 layers though, and not do multiple layers like I would if I was making a card. You're going to put a little hot glue. You're going to stagger your little branches, little petals, so that they're not lined up perfect. And that one almost ended up lined up perfect. You're going to do that for each of them. I'm making 3. I like making things in 3s, I guess. It does not take much hot glue at all to do these flowers, this part of the flowers. Now that I have them glued, I don't have to wait on them to dry. I also can add these little, I just cut out glittered cardstock. Just going to add a little hot glue here and put the little glittered circle there. I'm going to add some hot glue, put him in the center, and then add some more hot glue and put it in the center. So now that I have my flowers made, I can make them into bookmarks. Now, one thing you're going to need for these bookmarks is you're going to need a large paper clip, not a jumbo paper clip. These are just large. I think I got these at Dollar Tree or maybe even like General Dollar General. It was one of the little, just regular little discount stores. They may have even come from Walmart. You're going to need 3 punches. You're going to need circles that cover the back and cover the edge of your paper clip. So you're going to need them to be not as big as the flower, but big enough. Let me try to show you this up close. It needs to be big enough to cover the top part of your paper clip. Now you're going to be gluing this part of your paper clip, not this part. This down here is the part that goes on your paper. So you have to glue only the top part. Because this is the back, it does not matter what color it is. You can be consistent if you like. Again, use scraps to punch your holes. And again, I'm going to use hot glue. Now for this step, I am going to recommend hot glue because you need the glue to be thick. It needs to hold this metal behind this flower. In order for that to happen, you're going to have to put a pretty good amount of glue back there. So you're going to put the small end of your paper clip on the back of your flower. You're going to grab your hot glue and you're going to put a generous amount on top of that metal. And then you're going to put the circle on top of that to squish the glue both sides of the top and bottom of that piece of metal. You don't want to have to squish it to the point where the glue is coming out. You only want to squish it flat. So it's a little thick because the wire is thick for the paper clip. And you got to get the little strings off. But the hot glue really makes it durable. If you use another type of glue, you will want to put a thick amount of glue there, put your circle down, and then put this to the side and don't bother it for quite a while, especially if you used a thick amount of glue. So let's do another one so you can see it again. We're just going to flip this around. I actually meant to put the yellow on this one, but hey, the more color the better. We have a very colorful notebook over here. You're going to put the small single loop in the center of your flower. You're going to put a generous amount, probably like a pea size, like a nice big pea, green pea, English pea. I don't really know. And again, you're just going to make it flat. You're not going to squish all the glue out. You can get the strings off, and that's about it. And now let's do the third one. The small end of the paper clip, this end, not the double end, the single end. Now the bigger the paper clip, the more they get out of shape. So if your pack is out of shape, just bend it back a little. You're going to put a generous amount of glue. Try to eliminate those strings by going a little circle. Then you're going to take your 3/4 inch circle and press on top. And get rid of your strings again. Because the hot glue is thick, it goes in the bottom and the top of your wire so that it can hold it to the wire. And now I have these really cute flowers to go with my notebook. But because we added an extra pocket in here, we can simply add them to the pocket. And it's a great place to store the flowers. Now I know that I can put all 3 because I did test this. You can put all 3 in the little pocket. And by clipping them to the pocket, they're not going to fall out of your notebook. You could use some magnet bookmarks if you'd like. You can use paper bookmarks if you'd like. Anything you want. You could use a tag. But how cute is that? This would make a great journal or notebook for someone. For Christmas, it would make a great Christmas gift. The only downside to this hot glue is the strings. I wish there was a brand of glue that didn't string so much, but I don't think there's a way to get that. So we have our pretty corners. We got to use our corners again, which I absolutely love. And we got to use something new, bookmark flowers. Again, your flowers can be any design you want them to be. You don't have to have 2 pockets. I just wanted some greenery in here because of the flowers. You can also add stickers to your little pockets. Anything you want. Add a personal message, a stamp. And again, the report covers, these clear things, are very clingy. It is sticking to that without any extra effort. Let's see how our back one is doing. It's stuck to my cutting board because of the static electricity. But look, it does stick to the back cover very well. Guys, my channel is all about helping you craft and making pretty things. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you could do me a favor and share it with at least one person, that would be fabulous. How do you like the notebook? What would you add to your notebook? What would you put inside? Make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you come over to my Facebook page where we make all kinds of fun crafts and everybody shares, gives advice, and helps people out when they get stuck. Thanks guys for watching, and as always, happy crafting.